When your partner pulls away from you, then acts like nothing happened, do you actually know what they are trying to say? Maybe they went quiet for a few days. Maybe they stopped replying the way they used to. Maybe they were right there beside you, but somehow felt 1,000 miles away. And when you finally brought it up, they looked at you like you were imagining things, like the distance you felt was something you made up entirely in your own head. Yes, it seems like a normal rough patch. Everyone has off days, right? But behind that disappearing act followed by denial, there is something deeper that most people in relationships completely miss. It is one of the most emotionally confusing things a partner can do. And it has a name: ghostlighting. It is a combination of ghosting and gaslighting. Your partner pulls away without explanation, and when you react to that distance, they make you feel like the problem was never real, like you were being too sensitive, too needy, too much. And if you misunderstand what is actually driving this pattern, you could spend months, even years, blaming yourself for something that was never yours to carry. But here is what makes this so tricky. The reason your partner does this is not always what you think. And what it really means when this pattern suddenly stops or reverses is something most people wish they had understood sooner. We will get into that at the end, because it changes everything. So why does your partner actually ghostlight you? Most people assume it is simple. They are stressed, they are busy, they just need a little space, and then they forget how cold they were, so they act normal when they come back. End of story. But here's the thing. If stress or busyness was all it was, they would not make you feel crazy for noticing the distance. A partner who simply needed alone time would say that. They would name it, they would not vanish, and then deny that they ever left. So why do they keep doing this? Specifically with you, specifically in the moments when you need the most. Because ghostlighting is not about needing space. It is about control over the emotional temperature of the relationship. Clinical psychologist Dr. Ramani Durvasula describes this kind of pattern as a form of emotional manipulation, where one partner controls the narrative of what is real and what is not. The person doing it gets to set the emotional tone. They decide when the relationship is close and when it is distant. And if you question any of it, you become the unreasonable one. That is not forgetfulness. That is not a bad week. That is a power position. And by the way, if your partner used to be warm and present and has gradually shifted into this pattern of disappearing and denying, do not brush it off. We will get into what that reversal really means at the end, and it is something most people wish they had understood before it was too late. Have you ever noticed a small shift in your partner's energy right before they pull away? Maybe their text gets shorter. Maybe their voice goes flat. Maybe they stop making eye contact during conversations that used to feel easy and natural. That is not random. It is protective. It is instinctive. In attachment theory, this is called a deactivating strategy. It is what happens when someone feels emotionally overwhelmed but does not have the tools to say so directly. Here's what most people don't realize. When your partner ghostlights you, they are not just pulling away and then pretending it did not happen. They are managing their own emotional overload. Somewhere inside, they feel flooded, maybe by closeness that feels like too much, maybe by conflict they sense is coming, maybe by their own feelings that they do not know how to sit with. So they shut down, they withdraw. And when you bring it up, they deny it, because admitting the withdrawal would mean admitting the feelings behind it. And those feelings are the exact part they are running from. Now, this is not to excuse the behavior. Not at all. It is to help you see the full picture. The withdrawal is not about you being too much. It is about them not having enough room inside themselves for what they are feeling. And this is also why it hurts so deeply when it happens. Because on some level, you can feel that something real is going on beneath the surface. You just cannot get them to confirm it. And that gap between what you sense and what they are willing to admit is where all the confusion lives. Ever wonder why this pattern shows up in some relationships and not others? Maybe it is the couple who seems perfectly fine in public but barely speaks at home. Maybe it is the partner who showers you with affection one week and becomes a complete stranger the next. Maybe it is the relationship where every serious conversation somehow ends with you apologizing, even though you were the one who was hurt in the first place. That pattern is not random. It is deeply rooted in how we learned to love. Attachment theory, developed by researchers like Amir Levine, explains that people who grew up in homes where emotions were ignored or punished often learn to disconnect from their own feelings as a survival skill. They carry that skill straight into their adult relationships, and when things get emotionally intense, they do the only thing they know how to do. They disappear. Then they rewrite the story so the disappearance never happened. Watch how this plays out. If they pull away right after a moment of real closeness, they are regulating the intimacy because it feels unsafe. If they deny the distance when you bring it up, they are protecting themselves from a conversation they do not feel equipped to have. If they turn it around and make you the problem for even noticing, they are deflecting, because sitting with your pain would mean sitting with their own. And hey, if this is making you see your relationship differently right now, hit that like button and subscribe. It is the best way to help us reach more people who actually care about understanding what is really happening in their relationships. Now let us talk about the 7 signs that someone is ghostlighting you. Because this behavior does not always look the same. It wears different masks, and each one tells you something different about what your partner is going through underneath. The first sign is the slow fade before the vanish. Your partner does not disappear all at once. They gradually become less available, fewer calls, shorter replies, less enthusiasm when you share something that matters to you. You might notice that they stop asking about your day, or that the goodnight texts that used to come like clockwork just quietly stop. Then one day, you realize they have been emotionally gone for a while, and you cannot even pinpoint when it started. But if you say something, they tell you everything is fine. You are overthinking it. Nothing has changed. What they are actually feeling is overwhelmed by something they cannot name. The slow fade is their way of easing themselves out of emotional contact without having to explain why. And the hardest part is that because it happens so gradually, you start to wonder if maybe they are right. Maybe nothing did change. Maybe you are the one making it up. The second sign is the selective memory. You bring up a specific moment where they were cold or dismissive, and they act like it never happened. They do not just disagree with your version of events, they deny the event itself. You remember exactly how their face looked, you remember the tone in their voice, but they look you in the eye and say they have no idea what you were talking about. This is not a bad memory. It is emotional self-preservation. Admitting the moment happened would mean admitting the feelings that caused it, and those feelings are the ones they are working the hardest to avoid. So the event gets erased, not from their memory, but from the story they are willing to tell. The third sign is the warmth that arrives out of nowhere. After days or even weeks of distance, your partner suddenly becomes affectionate again. No explanation, no acknowledgement of the gap, no conversation about what happened or where they went. Just warmth, as if the cold stretch never existed. This can feel like relief, like finally coming up for air. But what is actually happening is a reset. They are reestablishing emotional connection on their own terms without ever having to address why they left. It keeps the cycle alive because you get just enough closeness to stay, but never enough honesty to feel safe. The fourth sign is the blame shift. When you express that you have been feeling disconnected, your partner turns it around on you. Suddenly, you are the one who is too sensitive. You are reading into things. You are always starting problems. You came into the conversation wanting to feel closer, and somehow you leave it feeling like you did something wrong. What they are really doing is offloading the emotional weight of the conversation onto you. Because if you are the problem, they do not have to look at their own behavior. And if they do not have to look at themselves, they never have to change. Over time, this teaches you something dangerous. It teaches you that bringing up your feelings leads to punishment. So you stop bringing them up altogether. The fifth sign is the public performance. Around friends, family, or co-workers, your partner is charming, attentive, and loving. They hold your hand. They laugh at your jokes. They make you feel like the center of their world. But in private, the distance comes right back. This is not about being fake. It is about emotional context. In social settings, the pressure is lower. There is no risk of deep conversation or vulnerability, so they can show up fully and freely. But in the privacy of your relationship, where real emotional demands exist, they retreat. The contrast between who they are around others and who they are alone with you is one of the most disorienting parts of being ghostlighted. The sixth sign is the half apology. When things finally reach a breaking point and you demand acknowledgement, your partner offers something that sounds like an apology but carries no real ownership. They say things like, "I am sorry you feel that way," or "I did not mean for it to come across like that," or even, "I guess I could have handled that better." Notice what is missing in every single one of those statements. Accountability, real ownership. They are soothing the moment without ever admitting what caused it. And this keeps you locked in the cycle because you receive just enough of a response to feel heard, but not nearly enough to feel truly understood or emotionally safe. And the seventh sign is the one that catches most people completely off guard. It is when your partner starts being more emotionally open, more honest, more present, more willing to talk about things they used to avoid. And you think the pattern is finally breaking. You feel hope for the first time in a while. But here's what sits underneath that shift. Sometimes this increased openness is not growth. It is recalibration. They sensed you pulling away, emotionally or even physically, and their system activated. The openness you are seeing is not about letting you in. It is about pulling you back before you leave. It looks like progress on the surface, but underneath, it is still the same dynamic operating. They are still managing the emotional distance, just from the opposite direction now. Have you ever noticed that you start choosing your words more carefully around your partner? That you rehearse conversations in your head before you actually have them? That you hold back how you really feel because the last time you were honest, it somehow turned into a fight where you were the one apologizing at the end. You used to speak freely. You used to share what was on your mind without thinking twice. But somewhere along the way, that changed. Now you are walking on eggshells, and you may not have even realized when it started. That is not a coincidence. It is an emotional shift that the dynamic between you two created over time. Researchers studying hypervigilance in relationships found that partners who are repeatedly met with denial when they express genuine concern begin to doubt their own perception of reality. They stop trusting what they feel. They start filtering themselves constantly. Not because they want to, but because their nervous system learned that honesty leads to conflict, and conflict leads to even more distance. Think about that for a second. Your entire way of showing up in this relationship, the way you speak, the things you say and do not say, how much of yourself you are willing to reveal, has been quietly reshaped by a pattern you did not even know was running in the background. Ever had a week where something was weighing on you? Maybe doubt about the relationship, maybe frustration, maybe just emotional exhaustion from the cycle, and your partner's behavior shifted before you even said a single word about it. Maybe they got colder out of nowhere. Maybe they picked a fight over something completely small and unrelated. Maybe they suddenly became overly nice and attentive. That is not a coincidence. They felt the shift before you spoke. Partners who have been together long enough develop an emotional radar for each other. They pick up on micro signals most people would never notice. A slight change in your tone of voice, a half-second delay before you respond to a message, the way your body tenses just slightly when they walk into the room, even the way you laugh differently or hold your phone a little tighter. These are signals you probably do not even know you are sending, but your partner reads them fluently. And here's where it gets even deeper. Your partner is not just reacting to what you say or what you do. They are reacting to the version of you that you do not even know you are showing. The guarded version, the careful version, the one that learned to make itself smaller so the relationship could survive another day. And when they sense that version pulling back, even slightly, their own pattern kicks in again. More distance, more denial, more confusion. They are not responding to who you really are. They are responding to a version of you that this entire dynamic built. So what does it mean when a partner who has been ghostlighting you suddenly stops? When the distance fades, the denial ends, and they start showing up in ways they never did before? This is what I mentioned earlier, and it is something everyone in a relationship needs to understand. If your partner has been cycling through this pattern of distance and denial for weeks or months and suddenly reverses course, do not just feel relieved. Pay close attention. People in relationships are creatures of pattern. When they break one this significant, something real has shifted inside. Sometimes the reason is emotional growth. They have done real inner work, maybe on their own, maybe through honest reflection or therapy, and they are finally ready to face what they have been avoiding for so long. They are choosing vulnerability over control, and that is worth recognizing and honoring. Other times, the reason is need-based. They want something specific from you: forgiveness, reassurance, a fresh start. The openness you are seeing is real, but it is driven by an outcome they are hoping for. And sometimes, the reason is cyclical. This is simply the next phase of the same pattern, completing its loop. Distance, denial, warmth, repeat. The warmth feels like change, but it is actually just the return swing of the same pendulum. Gottman's research found that couples who fall into repetitive cycles of withdrawal and reconnection without ever naming what is happening between them are among the most likely to experience long-term emotional disconnection. Not because they stopped loving each other, but because the pattern itself became the relationship, and neither partner knew how to step outside of it. The love was still there, but it got buried under layers of withdrawal, denial, and silence that neither person knew how to break through. Here is what I want you to carry with you. Understanding this does not mean you have to leave, and it does not mean your partner is a bad person. What it means is that you now see something that was invisible before. You see the rhythm beneath the surface. You see the withdrawal and the denial and the return for what they really are. You see how it quietly shaped the way you speak, the way you love, the way you hold back, and the way you protect yourself. And you can see now that your partner was not just being difficult or cold or careless. They were caught in something too. Something that probably started long before you ever met them. Something they may not even fully understand yet. Because that behavior, it was never just a habit. It was never just a bad day or rough patch. It was a conversation your partner was having with you in the only language they knew how to use. And now you understand what they were saying.